Before we get started, we just want to announce for anyone interested in ordering Mr. Lindell's 4-CD set, go to metaphysicalarttheater.com. For those in the U.S., you can order either physical copies or the digital downloads. For those outside the U.S., you can order the digital downloads by going to metaphysicalarttheater.com. I'm doing great, and I'm ready for the talk today. And today's subject, I want to talk about whosoever, whatsoever. Isn't that the message?
Yes, actually it is, because you're talking to yourself all the time. But what are you saying? See, that's the question. You should be asking yourself, what am I talking to myself about? Because that's eventually going to be my future, because you're always thinking ahead of your evidence, right?
Absolutely.
And whatsoever, well, what are you thinking about? That's the whatsoever you're going to be facing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you said that because, of course, we hear that whatsoever things you ask, praying, believing, that's what you'll have, correct?
Yes, and you're praying all the time. Every word you speak is a prayer. So you're always talking to yourself in a prayerful mood, whether you're aware of it or not, because you're praying ceaselessly. And ceaselessly is without stopping. So you're actually asking for whatever you're thinking about. And you're told not to imagine mischievous imaginings because they're also creative, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
As we're watching, as we're being mindful, for the person that thinks that they're praying for one thing, but life seems to be manifesting another thing, does that mean that prayer isn't working?
Absolutely not. It's foulness. It can't not give you what you're actually asking for. And what you're asking for is what you're expecting to get. And it's what you expect is what you get. Not necessarily what you want, unless they happen to be the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that just spills out because, it all comes through you. Your whole world is coming through you, not to you. That's why you're told not to judge by appearances. Because if you judge by appearances, you just keep repeating. And that's what people do. That's why they get bored. That's why they're not happy. It's because they keep repeating the same thing they don't like in the first place. Let it go. Let go of the problems. I know you say, well, but the bills still keep coming in. Yes, but it's what you think about the bills that make the bills bills rather than just something you pay. And you can do so. Because, look, you're always thinking ahead of your evidence. Why not think on things that are lovely and of good report? Because that's what you're told to do, isn't it?
It is. And I like that you were speaking about judging according to appearance, which is most of us. Now, the thing is, even that judgment according to appearance whatsoever, that's the prayer at that moment. Is that correct?
In other words, you're talking to yourself while I'm talking to you. You understand? That's what people are doing. They're talking to themselves while they're being talked to. But what are you talking about? How are you thinking feelingly in yourself? Because the whole thing is as within, so without. The world on the without is a second-hand land. It had to be thought of before it could be manifested. And that's what we're doing. We're thinking ahead of our evidence. But we're not claiming that we're talking ahead of our evidence. But we are, aren't we?
We are, whether we claim it or not. And the way that we know that is by one's fruits. Is that correct?
That's it. You experience it. You're always setting yourself up to have a problem or setting yourself free. That's what you're doing. When you're talking to yourself, you're either setting yourself up or setting yourself free. And if you catch yourself setting yourself up in a problem, then you have now just discovered how to cause a desired change. Because if you can set yourself up with a problem, then you can set yourself up to be free, because it's all one power. Which way are you going with it? That's all you have to ask yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I like that you said, listen, if you set yourself up for a problem and you understand the results of that, you now have the tools for desired change. The same thing you use to set yourself up for a problem will actually set you free. And most people, they hear that, and yet they go back to the problem thinking. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did exactly what you just said. And I did that over and over and over, because I had never caught myself setting myself up. And even if I did, well, then I just denied it. But then that's what we do. We deny ourselves, because we're thinking something else outside of us is forcing us to do things we don't want to do. And that's not so. You have to agree with everything you do, or you couldn't do it. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And I like that you stated that we have to be in agreement, even if we believe that we're not in agreement at some vibrational level. We're in agreement with the thing that we're manifesting. Otherwise, it would not be manifested. Would you agree?
You're on all the time. That's what you want to really think about for a moment. You're on all the time. Every word must be accounted for. Now, if you start looking at everything you think and say, I know what a hassle that would be, but thinking, actually seeing what you're actually thinking about and the results from thinking about it, you'll find that you're in control even if you're out of control, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what you want to do. You want control, but take control. You're given, choose this day. So if you're given to choose this day, that puts you in control. If you're paying attention to what you're choosing, right? Is that right?
It's absolutely right. You said every word must be accounted for. And I think a lot of times people misunderstand the accountability. The accountability is when that thought, that word, that feeling shows up into your reality. That's the accountability. Would you agree?
That's it. Yeah. Look, we keep telling you over and over and over, you're always thinking ahead of your evidence. And it's your saying ahead of your evidence that makes the evidence. What are you saying ahead? What are you saying? What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? That's what you're giving not only to yourself and your body, but you're spreading out into the world the same thing. If you're unhappy, think about it. Why are you unhappy? Because you're thinking unhappy thoughts, as you think you are. It's as simple as that. But it takes great patience just to listen to what you're saying to yourself. Think?
Absolutely. The person would say, well, if you knew what I was going through, you'd be unhappy too. But each person is given to choose this day. Would you agree?
That's what it is. That's what you're doing. And you are doing so. It's not a request. It's telling you that that's actually what you are doing. You are planning your future word by word, moment by moment. So it's your responsibility to know what you're saying to yourself, because you are talking to yourself almost continuously. But what are you saying? Once you see what you're saying to yourself, you're going to say, well, why am I thinking that? Now, I mean, that's not leading me where I want to go, so why would I bother with it? Because every word, get this, every word must be accounted for. What are you saying? I mean, it sounds very simple to me to catch yourself, but it does take the patience to really listen to what you're thinking and feeling. And that's not really what we do that often, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it goes back to, we have to be mindful of what it is that we're giving our attention to. Somebody said recently that they've started utilizing these principles that they hear from us weekly, and she achieved this astronomical weight loss. I mean, and so she looks like a model. But she said what she did was implemented the principles that she hears on a weekly basis from us.
Fantastic. That's what the whole thing's about. As you think, you are. And all we're telling you to do is just watch what you're saying to yourself. Not necessarily what you're saying out loud, because half of that is lying anyway to yourself. And that's the only way you can create problems for yourself, is that you lie to yourself. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, most of us really don't take into consideration, like you said earlier, what it is that we're saying to ourselves. Would you agree?
No, that's it. We're not. We're not paying attention to it, because if we were paying attention to it, then we would change it, wouldn't we?
We would.
Especially if it's going to be a problem. And you know that all it is just a change of mind. Because, look, anything that actually is a problem is non-existent except by your attention of it. So if you take your attention away from it, it dies. It goes away. But you have to let it go. And that's what the story is, let go and let God. He said, I'm right here with you. I will never leave you. Omnipresence. I mean, I can't think of any clearer way to put it to you, right?
Absolutely. You said, let go, let God. Many people are struggling with how to let go. What are your thoughts on that?
All you have to do is understand that there's only God. That's it. There's only God. And what God is doing through you, through your thinking and feeling, and that creates the without, the second-hand land, because it all is second-hand, because it's thought. Thought makes all the world around you. But what are you thinking about? What thoughts are you putting forth in your mind? What suggestions are you suggesting to yourself? What thoughts are you thinking? Are they mischievous? Because if they are, that's what you're going to experience. Because you're thinking ahead of your evidence. And if you're thinking from what's already happened, then that's all you can create, is more of what has happened. You're always thinking ahead of your evidence, but you have to choose what you're thinking. You're told, choose this day. Choose what you're to think about. I mean, if you just accept what's going on around you, you'll be in problems all the time, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. And going back to letting go, one of the things that I find beneficial for myself when a thought arises that it's not something that I want to be given my attention, I simply shift my thinking to optimize my potential. And I use that STOP acronym for a purpose. I stop thinking about what it is that I don't want by replacing it with a thought that I do desire. Now, sometimes you have to do this 70 times 7, because in letting go, sometimes the same thought will pop up again, and you release it by thinking another thought. You keep doing it until that thought that you've thought about or didn't want to think about loses its power. Do you have something similar that you do in order to let go of a negative thought?
Oh, yeah. Just let it go. That's it. All you have to do is just change your thought to something desirable. That's all. I mean, you can do that. Look, you can hang up the phone, can't you? Well, you can hang up any thought that you have the same way. Just dial it off, because you're in charge even if you're out of control. You're still the one in charge. And if you remember that, believe me, if you're out of whack in your thinking, then you're out of whack in your experiencing. And that's not what you want. You want to go to a certain place at a certain time for a certain reason. And if that's what has your attention, that's what you'll do. But if it keeps getting interfered with other things, then it doesn't turn out right because you're not thinking right. You're told that if you'll order your conversations are right, that you will know salvation. What else would you want to know? Isn't that the question?
That is the question. And it says, whosoever believeth shall have salvation. Believe in what? Believe in God. And you say, there's only God. So as we understand that there's only God, and that we can release an old thought as simply, as you said, hanging up a phone. Who can't hang up a phone? Matter of fact, we've hung up the phone on people, solicitors and so forth. Pretend that that thought is a solicitor in your mind, and simply hang up the phone and go on about your business and do the next best thing. Would you agree?
That's it. It's it. Look, you're told to go sit in a silence, be still, and know that I'm God. Now, why wouldn't you start right there? I mean, if you know who God is, and that is ultimately you, you're speaking to yourself, and you're suggesting to yourself what? Because what you're suggesting to yourself isn't falling into the past. It's being projected into our futures. So you're actually planning your own future moment by moment in your thinking and feeling. You're making mindsets which act automatically because they were given that space to occupy. And they'll come to do their thing and say their thing whenever an opportunity arises. But there's always an opportunity every moment for you to change your mind, change your world. And that's all you have to do. Change your mind, changes your world. The first does the second. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is a wonderful thing, and it's very simple because, like I said, so many of us, we want to complicate this because, of course, we're creatures of habit. And the thing about ego is going to say, no, it can't be that easy. There's a whole bunch of regimens that you have to go through. But it's simply change your mind, change your world.
That's it. And it's that simple. That really is that simple. And people say, well, you seem to repeat stuff so often. Absolutely. You're finally getting it. Because that's what's important for you to remember. Because that sets you up to do the thing you know that you should do. And that's the only problem there is. You're not doing what you think you should do. And that's what I had a problem with. I was thinking one way. But, we're told man's ways are not God's ways. So if you want to go man's ways, no, that's okay. It's always there. But if you want to go God's ways, then you have to shut off the world momentarily to get informed. And that's what you're to do. Seek and you shall find. Well, what are you looking for? What is it that you're looking for? Thinking feelingly about what? If you know that, then you know where you're going. If you don't know that, then you don't know where you're going, right?
Absolutely. And you said something. You said, seek and you shall find. That seeking applies to whosoever. And what you'll find is whatsoever you're looking for. So you have to be mindful, as Mr. Lindell has said so many times, of what it is that you're giving your attention to. He also said something that was profound. He said, you have to know God, but if you understand who God is, he's you. Neville would often say he's your own imagination. Scripture says, have you been so long with me, Thomas, that you do not know that when you see me, you see the Father? These are all indicators to let us know that we and Father's source, God, energy, whatever you call that divine intelligence we know as God. Consciousness.
If you're conscious, that's God. If you're unconscious, that's you. And we are unconscious most of the time, even though we're complaining about our unconsciousness. You just have to take control. You have to show up. That's it. You got to show up to claim what it is you want, because you're told you receive not because you ask not. Well, what would keep you from asking? That's a question, isn't it?
It is.
What actually would keep you from asking? God said, ask. Yet that you receive not because you ask not. Well, it seems easy enough to correct. But you have to show up to claim what's already yours, because he gave it all to you. Son, all I have is yours. Even himself, he gave himself to you. I am with you always. I will never leave you. Omnipresence. What else do you need to know to communicate with the Father? What? Do you know? Is there anything else?
There's nothing else. And as you said, son, daughter, all that I have is yours. And the only thing we have to do is claim it. Now, don't miss the claim. The claim is what it is that you're giving your attention to. So when you're giving your attention to, as Mr. Lindell said, when you become conscious of, that's God. But that's also the manifestation process in progress. Would you agree?
Yeah, we're all in the process of understanding. But you have to give yourself to it. In other words, you have to have the patience, and that is actually number one on the list of everything, is just to be patient with yourself. Because that was the only problem I had for years. I was not patient. If it didn't happen right away, you know about that. Everything seems to take forever. But that's you doing that. You're putting it on. He said, if you turn to me, I'll turn to you. Well, that's it. Problem solved. But you have to be patient with yourself to do so, wouldn't you say?
I do. And the turning is required on our part because God is already facing us. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's right. In other words, I am with you right now. I'm right here with you. If you turn around, that's the one turning. God has given you permission to choose this day, and he's not going to interfere. He's not going to interrupt you. He's not even going to tell you that this is not good and this is no. He tells you, choose this day. And you can choose anything you want, and you can see what's going on in the world that people are choosing wildly for the most part. And it's always up to you. I will do this. I will not do this. It's always your call. And when I say yours, because the first thing I realized in the revelation was that it is for every child born of woman. And you say, well, what about the little kids that die right at the birth? No, that's just part of the play. That's part of the drama. That's part of our understanding how things work. And it does work in your favor if you're working in your favor. Wouldn't you say that?
I would. And I like that you said that it's working in your favor if you're working in your favor. Because when you're not working in your favor, Scripture has a term for that. They call it sin. Basically, you're missing the mark. So if you're off track, if you're missing the mark, if you're not manifesting, if you're not bringing about the life that you desire by your way of thinking, simply turn to God. That doesn't mean a physical turning, but a mental turning of consciousness and realize that I am. Would you agree?
This is a psychological drama. Yes, that's it. You said it. It's a psychological drama, as within, so without. In other words, so without is what is within that you're thinking feelingly about. So if you don't want to see it in your world, don't think about it. We're always dreaming up monsters. And why? Well, because look at television. I mean, they expound it over and over and over. People killing people, people doing unreasonable, unnecessary, undesirable things. And you see this, but you think it's just passing by, but it isn't. As you think you are, you do, you have, you be. And I do repeat that over and over because I know how important it is to recognize when you're actually denying yourself. And we're told all denial is self-denial. So why are you denying yourself if you're suffering, if you're feeling out of it? The first time I ever felt really included is when it was said, every child born of woman. So you're a chosen, but you also have to choose you. You get that, right?
I do. Now, it's important that the listener gets that because a lot of times we're choosing other than us, and we think that that's being spiritual, that that's being godly, but it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and to love your neighbor, that's the end, as yourself. See, many of us think that our goal is to love our neighbor even better than ourselves, but it says love your neighbor as yourself. See, so if you don't have the appropriate love for yourself, you're not going to have the appropriate love for God or your neighbor. Would you agree?
That's right. That's it. It's as you think you are. You do. You have. You be. You're a thinking, feeling being. Whether you claim to be religious or not, that's most of the world claims to be religious, but they're not really. They go through the motions of it, but not really. If they're still sick, if they're still having great problems, it's because they keep building them up. If you had your thinking straightened out, in other words, if a man would order his conversations aright, that's it. That's all you need to do. Order your conversation. Think only on things that are lovely and of good report. And we're told that that's what this world is. It's lovely and of good report. If we're not experiencing that, then we're not thinking properly, right?
Absolutely. I want to go back to something you said earlier about television. You said that the promoters, the people that run the television shows, they repeatedly transmit to you the ideal that it is they want you to think in essence. So my question to the listeners is, if the producers, the people that are selling commercials and so forth on television understand the importance of repetition, how much more should we? Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. They understand it very well. They've got scientific proof to back it up that reiteration and reiteration is what's guiding your life. But you're talking to yourself all the time. Why are you not guiding yourself where you want to go rather than where you don't want to go, right?
Absolutely. And it goes back to what you just said about talking to yourself. 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are unconsciously on repeat. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And then people ask, why is this happening to me? Because you set it in motion. If you hadn't set it in motion, it could not be, right?
Absolutely. I like that. I like that you said that. We've set it in motion. And if we didn't set it in motion, it could not be. Now, you say, well, I didn't set it in motion. What we're conscious of is the 5 minutes of affirmations that we give in a given day. We give 5 minutes of affirmations, and we say, I was thinking positive. I had a period where I was just thinking nothing but positive thoughts. But you discount the rest of the day that subconscious mind is on autopilot. Would you agree?
That's it. Double-mindedness. That's it. We're double-minded. And the idea is we're supposed to be single-minded. And as long as you're single-minded, you're okay. But as long as you're double-minded, you're not allowed to do anything. That's what you're told. Do not let the double-minded man think he will do anything, because he won't. He can't make up his mind. And when you can't make up your mind, well, you're vulnerable to everything going on around you. Your environment is not thinking of what you desire. It's thinking of what they desire. And we're told very plainly that we ourselves are makers of ourselves. So if you don't like what you are, then why you did it. undo it. You have the power, one power. There's only one power, and that's the power you're using, whether you see it that way or not, but it is. And as a matter of fact, you know everything if you'll only remember it. And that's what it's all about, remembering. Because you are God. And you gave up your memory to have this play of humanity and that to allow your children to grow up, to think for themselves.